Hello and welcome. It is September 25th. Officially, summer is over, and this video that you may or may not have been waiting for is going to serve as a final call for sailing preparation. Now, we know that sailing is coming out in the end of autumn, which I believe to be like late November to mid-December, most likely. This means we have, about 90 days or so at the most optimistic outlook of actually getting completely prepped for the skill. So I've gone through everything there is to know. I was in the Sailing Alpha, the beta from like March and June. I've been reading the 3 blog posts that have been put out, and I was on the stage call today. I heard a lot of good questions. I've been trying to gather as much information as I can, and I've condensed down all the things that I think are relevant. There's been a few good videos out there on YouTube covering some of this, but I think we have more information today, and I wanted to kind of take a quantitative approach on some of the realistic goals that I think people can get. Because I know a lot of people, even in my community, want to be doing the sailing race, and I thought I'd try and put some information together to help you guys. So for context, I did the archaeology race in RuneScape 3. I remember prepping for it a little bit. The idea of prepping for new skills involves a lot of, like actual account progression. So in terms of time, in terms of resources, right? And in terms of actually understanding like things like quests or what other blocks might be in the way. And there's things that like they may communicate that you will need, but there's other things that are like, okay, well, this was really obvious. And then there's maybe these like other things that might help as well. So I'm gonna get all of these covered in this video. It should be really exciting. So I've actually gone through, and the way that I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna break down like, here are your lower priority skills, the ones that I think are not gonna be as relevant. Then we'll get into the ones that are medium priority, things that I think have a high chance of being useful, but may not be totally required to be efficient in terms of XP. And then the things that I think are just absolutely necessary. There's really no way around it. And I think if you don't do them, you're either going to be at a huge disadvantage, you might not have access to a bunch of the content, you're going to get capped at like a certain point. Let's get right into it. I mean, this skill is incredibly vast, right? There's application for multiple hybrid training methods, things like the deep sea trawling, which we know is like a mixture of sailing and fishing, but actually also even requires your construction level to build like the different nets. Fishing is a great example of what I'd say is a low priority skill. I don't think you actually need fishing to be efficient with sailing XP, so I don't necessarily think the hybrid skilling methods are going to be that great, but you probably want them available, so I would kind of recommend that. As for thieving seems to be more of a skill that is not necessarily required in order to get good XP, but it could be used to kind of augment if you don't want to do the smithing route of getting your own cannonballs. You might be able to pickpocket the pirate chests, which are 33, 54, and 76. And then the cannonball stall, which may be the most lucrative, is at level 87 thieving, which I think is quite high, so I'm not really sure if that's like the route you might want to go. Those are the only two that I put in like the lower priority. You won't hear me mention, for what it's worth, things like cooking and farming. I don't think they're really useful at all. There's like new skilling methods involved with those. There's also like new methods with Hunter. A lot of implications with Slayer as well. But let's go into the medium priority skills next. So mining is kind of the one that is sitting at the level of medium to high. It's the only one that kind of, I wasn't sure if I should put it in high or medium. But at 25, you can mine lead, which makes lead bars. And then at 74, you can mine nickel, which makes copper nickel bars. These 2 bars I think are very necessary. You technically are probably going to have higher mining than this because you want to be able to mine runite, I would think. Smithing is one of the high priority skills. I'll get into that in just a moment. Mining in general, I think you're going to want to have some pretty deep ore stacks so that you can build some bar stacks. If you have some method of acquiring the bars and you have the smithing, that's fine. But in terms of Ironman, I assume that people are going to have high mining anyways. The second one that I did put as a medium priority skill is farming, because farming, it seems like it may not be 100% required, but you might have access to better hardwood patches. And when I say hardwood, I'm not necessarily referring to just teaks and mahoganies, but the new 3 types that are coming. They're called camphor, ironwood, and rosewood. We also have like the cotton seed, but I think cotton may not be totally necessary, but 71 is a good level to hit there. The 92 is going to definitely give you access to the rosewood seed patches, but even acquiring rosewood seeds, I think it might just be more optimal to cut these logs on an island without using your own hardwood patch. That seemed like it was going to be an option. As for crafting, the next medium priority skill, there's really only 3 level unlocks they mentioned that are relevant. 12 is for flax, and I think most people are going to have 12 crafting, and they're also going to have flax, so I just would advise people to get a stack of flax. At 39 crafting, you can do hemp, which is going to make the second tier of cloths, and then the third tier is at 73 crafting. That is what you can use cotton for. So you need 73 crafting. This is most likely going to be kind of in that medium to high priority as well. And then Slayer, finally, as the last medium priority skill, you need 62 Slayer for lava strike worms, which is one of 2 monsters that we're told so far that are going to drop dragon metal sheets, which are the highest tier component for smithing that are going to be used to make these heal parts. I'll get into those in just a moment, but as we understand it, These are going to be very lucrative items. I imagine in like the mainscape part of the game, they're going to be trading for a lot of money. The frost dragons, we know that drop them, are going to have some like mid 80s sailing requirements. So I'm expecting people to like level up and then maybe start selling these for a lot of money. In the Iron Man world, you do want to have the most options possible, because by the time the Iron Men get there, hopefully we know, is it better to farm the Strike Worm or the Frost Dragon? So that's an interesting one, but I'd say get the 62 Slayer, not terribly difficult, and kind of clears that barrier. And now the fun part, the high priority skills. Smithing seems to be the second most valuable skill in all of the sailing prep that I have listed out here. So at 25, you get the lead bar. You can do bronze to adamant keel parts from like 10 all the way to 74. So most people are going to have these bars. Part of my prep, I'll get to in a moment, but that's going to involve getting a bunch of every type of bar just kind of planned out, because you can get this stuff in advance, right? Copper nickel is also kind of lined up with adamant, so that happens at 74 as well. And the two tiers above that are rune at 86 and dragon at 94. So assuming you get those dragon metal sheets, you're able to use those at 94 smithing. So that's one of the highest requirements. That seems pretty necessary. I'm not getting into boost necessarily in this guide, but I think you probably will be able to boost most of these. Just looking at like the raw requirement, 94 is pretty high for smithing. Even if you have a +5 boost, you're still looking at almost 90 smithing. So definitely make sure you put some time into that. You'll also be able to make cannonballs, right? And we know that cannonballs come in 2 different flavors. You can mine this other resource and it'll basically help you get incendiary shots. The necessity of cannonballs in general, I don't want to dive too deep into, because we don't know how necessary they will be for combat. In sailing, which might be gating certain content or helping you actually get efficient sailing XP, I figure I have to put on the list. So like if you have the 94 smithing, you'll be able to make all the cannonballs all the way up. So that kind of is like a 2 birds in 1 stone type of thing. It looks like we do unlock a new smithing method for cannonballs in the 80s. At 81 sailing, Brittle Island has a reduced number of ticks. So normally cannonballs take 8 ticks. At Brittle Island, it only takes 4 ticks. And the next one is woodcutting. I think there's really 3 levels of woodcutting that are required, and of course they feed into construction, the most important skill. At 40, you can get the first, I think it's called Jatoba. Jatoba are useful for a quest, I believe. Camphor and Rosewood are the main 2 tiers that will be used in the planks. These planks are super expensive, which again we'll get into in just a moment, but both those go into construction, which of course is probably the most time intensive here. Between smithing and construction, you can put a lot of time into this prep, but essentially all the existing hardwoods are going to be useful. So you want to stack of planks, you want to stack of teak planks, you want even oak planks, and you'll need mahogany planks. I think is a great thing to prep, because that's like our highest tier plank right now. The 3 that are coming are at 53 you have camphor, at 77 you'll have ironwood, and at 84 you'll have the rosewood hull part. These are all crazy high requirements, and I think that like getting this prep done is going to be very important, because you're going to be using these hull parts to upgrade your actual ship. We know in the beta, this was confirmed, that upgrading your ship is going to increase its stats. So you may have things like increased base speed, your boost duration, even your speed cap. These are all things that can hopefully help your ship feel better over time and do all sorts of tasks, like things like Barracuda time trials, just navigating around the world, and even things like getting certain boosts and different XP methods, I imagine, are going to be kind of directly correlated to how upgraded your ship is. That's going to sum up kind of the skill distribution. So in terms of materials and actual preparation, it takes 25 bars to make 1 large keel part, because it says it takes 5 bars to make a normal keel part. And the exact same ratio exists for planks, actually. So 5 planks, which is 5 logs, right, makes 1 hull part, and then 5 hull parts makes 1 large hull part. So say you need like 10 large hull parts, that actually means you need literally 250 planks of that type alone. And imagine if you needed that multiple times. Imagine if there's a maintenance component. So I say to people, like, you should probably have at least 1 to 500 of each bar. If you're like really serious about this, maybe even 1,000, more than 1,000. So each bar, each plank, all the way up to runite, all the way up to mahogany. I think this is just a good play in general. It might even make more sense to have a little bit extra of like the end game stuff, like rune and mahogany, in the case that like getting these new things is like very difficult. The XP rates, they were confirmed again to be middle of the pack, so we're expecting nothing too crazy. They said nowhere near as slow as agility, but not as fast as other skills. So I'm expecting somewhere around 100k an hour. So we're looking at literally a long time until people are actually hitting 200 million. It's not going to be like a 1-week race or anything like that. This is going to be like a slow burn where people are going to race to 99, 13 million XP. Even if they were playing every single hour of the day, is not going to happen in 130 hours, right? I would recommend getting a stack of cannonballs, maybe around 5,000, just as a ballpark number. You'll want like a stack of flax, because we know it's going to make like the early game components, maybe like 1,000. Most likely like probably 200 to 500 flax is going to be enough. And then the plank cost. I don't think anyone's mentioned this as well, but we know that planks are actually very expensive.
Having the sailing requirement, something the community isn't talking about a lot. Boats are expensive. We haven't really touched on that a lot, and players aren't seeing that in the beta, but boats are costing you quite a lot. They're using a ton of planks. And we know how expensive planks can get at the higher level, so maybe getting 51 sailing with like an oak boat or a wood boat is going to be pretty brutal, like in some cases, for players who can't afford to get to teak mahogany and get these more expensive ones.
Teaks are only 500 GP, and then mahoganies are 3 times more at 1,500, but the 3 new planks, camphor, ironwood, and rosewood, are 2,500, 5k, and 7,500 each. Now for an Iron Man, this is actually super expensive. For people who are watching this video, if you guys are new to RuneScape, this is like a pretty big barrier to get over. If you don't have prep on this, this is going to be a big time gate for you. So make sure you guys are stacking literal money. Training construction is expensive. So if you're doing that as well, you're going to need a lot of capital, like 20, 30, 40 million to like get that construction done. Make sure you're tackling this stuff. If you're doing Giant's Foundry, make sure you get the double cannonball mold. I think around 15 million would be the number based on my math to make 1,000 of each new plank type. Maybe 20 to 50 million if you want to be a little bit more prepared in case we need some stuff for maintenance. There's definitely a case where you could maybe even use more than that. I'd say 100 million is probably like advanced prep. To make this really interesting, I put together 3 different tiers of preparation, what I'm going to call C tier prep, B tier prep, and A tier prep. Kind of have like a stretch goal for A, which we'll call S tier. The C tier prep really is just trying to get access to all of the new things. It's really not going to get you to a point of being competitive, but you'll kind of be ready for the skill when it comes out. I just want people to know, like, you could get a good bit of progress without putting in a ton of effort. But in terms of XP, yeah, the numbers are not like super encouraging. Like we're looking at like, 30 million XP if you want to get everything done, but you only need like maybe 100,000. So these are all pretty reasonable. I think a new account could easily get to B tier in like probably like just a week or 2 if you know how to play RuneScape. But even the A tier, I think is completely reasonable. That's kind of what I'm targeting. I might try and get close to some of the S tier stuff, but personally, I don't know if I have enough time. But yeah, that's kind of the list, guys. I hope this has been informative. Put together this information in the hope that like some of the people that are in my audience, this community, that you guys don't feel kind of overwhelmed by sailing when it's coming up. I think most of this stuff is very achievable. If you guys have any questions at all, make sure you jump on our Discord. We have a lot of people really interested in sailing, and I think it's gonna be a fun time when the skill comes out. We're gonna go hard, try and pull some like consistent like 17/7s. It should just be an absolute blast. I hope to see you guys live. Sorry, I have obviously been under the weather. I'm hoping to get back on a regular schedule, but guys, we've been blowing up on YouTube a little bit. It's been nice watching the channel grow. I appreciate everyone's support, and I hope you guys have an excellent day. Onwards and upwards. Let's get it, guys. See you around. Oh my God.